leadership ultimately will always be and always has been about service. And a life without service is a life without meaning. I met a guy who's been over here for 22 years. He's actually from the UK. He came to volunteer for a few days and ended up being here 22 years later, building one of the most incredible projects. And from having conversations with him, he mentioned one word multiple times, and it was fulfilled. You could tell in his energy, in his actions, in his enthusiasm, how he was genuinely feeling so fulfilled. I've spent time with 6, 7, 8-figure earners, whatever you want to call them, entrepreneurs, and they're asking me, Dan, how do I find fulfillment? Yet you have somebody who doesn't have anything in terms of material possessions, but has everything that people are looking for. And you know what the most interesting thing is? He has fulfillment, but doesn't want the rest. Other people have the rest, but searching for fulfillment. How interesting is that? That at the bottom, at the core of leadership, it will always be about service to others. And I've always had this innate desire to want to serve people and not want anything back, because ultimately that is real service at its finest. And I have to just be honest with you, after spending a few days on our project, I just pulled up my Instagram, and the first thing I saw was someone, and I'm not going to say names, there's no need to, but if the shoe fits. I just watched a video and I just felt how disingenuous this really is, because at the heart of what most people are doing, it's all about them. It always has been about them. And they say things like, I'm changing lives, I've helped this person, I've done that. But as I always say, when you actually lift up the lid of what they're saying, it's really all about self. It's all about me. It's all about what I've done, what I can do. And if it wasn't, they wouldn't even been doing that very thing. And this is such a common thing that we see over in the West. Actually, in everywhere in the world, we see way too much, is that leadership's become about performance. It's been about titles. People associate someone who's in a government or has a position as they are a leader. But really, I saw an example of what real leadership is. The greatest gift we can give is to lay our lives down for somebody else. And I saw tens and tens of people living a life of service, of real leadership, with no shiny badge, with no monetary gain to get. Real service, real leadership. And I have no doubt that, and I believe they have no doubt, many of them are of faith, and if you live a life of faith, you are living a life of service. They know that their treasures don't lie in the materialistic things of this world, because that really is, it lacks so much substance. And what I want to explain to you guys is that when you live a life of service, when you live, as somebody said to me, boots on the ground in service, your awareness to fake leadership just multiplies. And so someone like myself, I can see it a mile off when someone is being disingenuous. And I see it online all the time. We see it in authorities and in governments all the time. And let's be honest, the whole system is built upside down, where the people who are serving self often looks like it's working, but it's not. Just because something looks like it's working, it doesn't mean that it is. And so if you're watching this video, I would just encourage you to seek real leadership, seek real service with nothing to gain, with no ulterior motive. There's no, I'm doing this because with this I get that. There's no seek for recognition. There's no need for validation. You serve out of the goodness of your heart because you know it's the right thing to do. And you see someone, you see a need, and your only solution, your only focus is to be a solution and to meet their needs with no other motive. That's what real leadership is. And just imagine for a second if everybody lived with that mindset, how much better the world will go round. Now look, we all know that's never going to happen, but just because everybody else is doing something, it doesn't mean that you should be like them. And that's my encouragement to everybody, is to be who you know you should be. Not because it's popular, not because of the gain, but because it's just the right thing to do. Look, as someone who's been in business for 11 years now, I'd like to say I've been somewhat successful in that space. One thing I've realized is really the collapse in moral compass. We're in a generation, we're in a society, and we're in an economy where you no longer actually have to have value and have skills to profit. You can just pretend to. So social media now is just full of these fake gurus and just people who are in it for themselves, not even just in it for themselves, they're in it to get from other people. And look, there's two ways of building the biggest tower. You either build the biggest tower or you knock down the biggest tower. And so most people online, it is like the wild, wild west out there, where people just, they wake up one day and they just decide they're going to be this person. They perform this character online and people fall for it, because this is the problem. People, they know how to speak to people's innate desires. They know that we're selfish. We want money. We want pride. We want fame. We want all these things that make us feel good. And you know what? It is working. People are making money, but pride comes before the fall. After 11 years, I know that that is not a sustainable model. That is not who you want to be. And this is the thing, when you go to bed, when you're brushing your teeth, you look yourself in the mirror. And that's really where the rubber meets the road for most people. They get to this elevated position. They enjoy all the fruits of their labor, but ultimately they always crash and burn, because what they've built on is a facade. It's a character. It's not who they really are. And life is long. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to play the long game. You have to be willing to sacrifice certain opportunities for potential gain in order to do the right thing. And that's always been something that I pride myself on. I want to do the right thing for the right reasons. Now, you're always going to come across people who have an opinion on that. I'm sure there's people that will have a negative opinion on the work that I'm doing over here in Uganda, but this is why I built the brand Led From Within. It's about being Christ-focused, Christ-led, not people-led. When I wake up in the morning, I don't think about what do people think about me? What does the internet say about me? How can I please these people? How can I look good for Instagram? I think about the Lord I'm serving. I think about the people I can serve. I think about the family I can protect. And I think about who I'm becoming. As I'm speaking right now, I'm sure you can think of examples of actual individual people who are basically living a double life. They say they're one thing online, but offline they're completely different. They write these really well scripted ChatGPT statuses online, nice Instagram posts, but you know deep down who they really are. You know who they've harmed along the way. And sometimes it can feel very frustrating, because you kind of think to yourself, why is this person that's done so many bad things, that's living this facade, having rental cars, living in houses that they pretend they own, how are they not getting what they deserve? Well, listen, two things. First of all, we all get what we deserve in the end. And second of all, what's it got to do with you? Your race has nothing to do with their race. You run at your own speed, and you have the emotional intelligence, you have the wisdom, you have the maturity to live the way that you want. Remember, being Christ-led, Christ-focused, led from within rather than led from without. You're not living your life based on the outside world, based on physical things, based on fancy looks. You're living a life of intention, with morals, with values, something that you know will go far beyond a transaction. Because let's be honest, the business world is transactional. In my industry in particular, the more elevated you become, you get put on a pedestal. You speak on stage, you get labeled a position. And what that can do to some people is very, very bad. As I said, I've worked in multiple different industries, multiple different businesses, but one of them in particular, you see what recognition can really do to a person. You can see what pride really does to a human heart. I've seen people in positions that they never dreamed of being in. They got there, but instantly lost gratitude and lost meaning on why they did it. And all of a sudden, they became master manipulator. Because this is the thing about leadership. Leadership ultimately is about influence. With great power comes great responsibility. When you are someone of influence, you have responsibility to do the right thing. But there is a devil on your shoulder that is letting you know that the power you possess can be used in a different way. So I've seen many people become master manipulators, and guess what? You can get away with it. Why? Because the world is so stupid. That's the only way to put it. The world is that stupid because they're chasing their innate desires so much that they will sell to the highest bidder. With your influence, with your power, with your results, you can actually control people and say, listen, I've got something better over here. And you can use that influence to tear other people down, to build yourself up, which is what I was explaining. And I've witnessed this firsthand. I've been involved in it. And I'll be honest with you, I've never found it that difficult to do the right thing, even if it came at a cost. Because again, when you're led by the Spirit, when you're led from within, you understand that these external things have no value. Will you be spoken bad about? 100%. Will people have an opinion? Absolutely. But guess what? You wake up after a nice 8 hours sleep, you feel good, you know in your consciousness, and in your conscience is clean, and you've done the right thing. And one thing I can tell you from a strategy of winning long term, this is how you have to be, because you know where most of those people are now? Irrelevant. There are people that I used to look up to. There are people that I used to listen to. And if they rang me now, I wouldn't even answer the phone. In fact, most of them won't even message me anymore because they know that I know. And that's what it's like playing the long game. One of the biggest challenges is the complacency. People forget where they came from. They forget what they were building. And credibility and reputation is something that can take years to build, but a second to destroy. One shiny object, one wrong decision, and it can all come crashing down. You had loyal followers, people that really loved you for who you were, but you chose to be followed for what you have. And as a consequence, now you have a sphere of influence. You're going to dinner with people that actually don't like you. They don't care about you, but people that did care about you have left you behind. You think you've left them behind because you're on the high horse, you're making more money, but guess what? You're the one that got left behind. And in 10 years' time, we'll see the outcome of that. You have to start playing the long game. You have to start realizing what this is all about. You really need to understand and fall in love with real service, real leadership, and not making it all about yourself.